Hello everybody, welcome to the Menlo Circus Club. My name is Michael Adams, I'm the executive chef here. And about 3 or 4 months ago, Dirk Zander, the general manager, and I started talking about doing cooking classes for our members. Now, due to the current situation with the COVID-19, the coronavirus, we're not able to do that. So what we wanted to do every week, while this is all in place, was reach out to our members, do a little cooking class, maybe engage everybody. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me personally. My email address is Michael A, M-I-C-H-E-L-A at menlocircusclub.com. And first thing I want to do is give a shout out to Dirk for all the work that he's done over the last last month and a half probably. He's really held this place together. And he's also behind the camera today, so he's doing all our production. And then Robin Saline, who's been putting together the emails and the announcements, and she's going to be editing this video. I just want to give a big thanks to her for all that she's been doing. Most cooking classes, they give you a recipe. They show you how to execute the recipe. End of cooking class. That's not really how I work. I really love what I do. I really have a passion for what I do. And one of the things that I love so much is the knowledge that's involved. There's so many layers to everything. So I wanted to do a cooking essentials class. I can give you recipes and you can execute them. You can say this is delicious. Or I can build your foundation of cooking. I can make you a better cook so that when you cook, you understand the complete process. You have a better understanding of everything that's going on. And really your execution and your food is going to be better. Today, I'm going to be doing a very simple dish. We're going to be doing a roasted chicken breast, a little Rosemary Lemon Jus, Truffle Mac N Cheese, and just going to saute some asparagus. Sounds simple, but we're going to go into different layers of everything, and we're going to talk about how everything's executed, and then give you variations of what you can do with it at home. So we're going to start off. We're just going to start with the chicken. I like to use, how's that? I like to use airline chicken breast. It's called an airline chicken breast because it still has the wing bone in it. I like my chicken breast skin on. If you can't get your chicken breast skin on, it's okay. It's all right. You can use boneless, skinless. The cooking process is going to change slightly because you don't have that layer of protective skin and protective fat. And the flavor is going to be a little different, but it'll work just as fine. If you want to use chicken thighs, use chicken thighs. You can use anything you want. Use what you have. Don't go to the store just to get these ingredients. Go through your fridge, pull out what you can find, and go from there. Chicken marinades. I really want to take a minute and talk about chicken marinades. The type of marinade that you use for your application, whether it be fish, whether it be beef, pork, chicken, really depends on the cut of meat, and how you're going to prepare it. If you're grilling something, you can use wetter marinades with a lot more ingredients in them. You can use stuff that has chunks of garlic, chunks of herbs, lots of spices. If you're braising stuff, you want to cut back just a little bit. Also on the grill, you can use yogurts, a lot more acid, stuff with lemon juice and orange juice and vinegars in them. When you're pan roasting, you really have to keep your marinade simple. And the reason being is we're going to take this chicken skin and we're going to apply about 600 degrees of heat to it. Now, if there's chunks of garlic on the chicken skin, it's going to burn. If there's chunks of rosemary on the chicken skin, it's going to burn. If there's yogurt on the chicken skin, it's going to burn. So keep it simple when you're pan roasting. For other applications, go crazy. But if you're using a pan, simple ingredients, not too chunky. At the restaurant, for chicken, we actually butcher our chickens out, and then we'll just layer them with whole rosemary leaves and whole thyme leaves, sliced shallots and garlic. And then before we actually cook the chicken, we'll pick all that stuff off so there's no residual marinade on there. So we're going to start our chicken breast, then we're going to move into our jus because we have everything together. Searing chicken. You need a pan that's big enough. You need an oil, either a canola oil, a grapeseed oil, or just a pure olive oil. And I actually skipped the marinating the chicken part. So we're gonna go back a little bit. For my chicken breasts at home, I just like a little bit of kosher salt. And when you season your proteins at home, be a little aggressive. The amount of salt that you're putting on there has to match the volume of meat that you're putting on there. And a lot of it is actually gonna fall off in the cooking process. So I would say put on 1.5, what you think is right. Now, also, all depends on the type of salt that you're using. If you're using kosher salt, it has a lower salinity, meaning it's less salty than, let's say, just a Morton salt. But be aggressive with your salt. And then for these, a little bit of salt, a little bit of black pepper, and just some chopped rosemary. And you can do this a couple hours ahead to let the flavors get in, let the salt penetrate. It's really, with chicken, it's all about building flavor because, as we know, chicken doesn't have a lot of flavor on its own. So we want to build layers of flavor with it. If you notice my chicken breast, there is no marinade on the skin side because once again, that marinade will burn. So we've got a nice hot pan. We're gonna add a neutral oil to it that's got a high smoke point. We're gonna let that oil heat up. We're gonna let that oil heat up right into the point where it starts to smoke. And the reason we wanna do that is we wanna seal all the pores in the pan and so that the chicken doesn't stick. So as that's heating up, types of chicken. 38 North, Rosie, Petaluma Farms, anything that's air chilled and organic is gonna be your best bet. The reason for that is air chilled chicken means it's not soaked in water at all, so it's gonna have more of a pure chicken flavor to it. It's not gonna be watered down. You're just getting better quality stuff, and organic is always the way to go, especially, and all those companies have really good husbandry programs, so they really take good care of their animals. So if you look at our pan right now, it's just starting to smoke, and if you look at the oil, when you run it through, it starts to ripple a little bit. That's exactly where you want to be. We're gonna grab our chicken, put it skin side down, lay it down away from you, because what you don't want to do is have that oil splash up if you happen to drop the chicken. So I'm going to put the chicken in a very hot pan, and then I'm going to turn it down. I'm going to turn it down. I always tell my cooks, medium heat is your friend, and I firmly believe in that. There's a lot less damage that can be done if you make a mistake with medium heat. You can put the chicken in a pan, you can walk away, you can go start prepping something else. So remember at home, medium heat is your friend. With this chicken breast, we're gonna cook it I can't really tell you the time, it depends on your pan. It depends on the size of the chicken breast, how hot everything is, until we get the skin golden brown. If you notice on the recipe that we sent out with everything, there's 4 chicken breasts. I'm only using 2 because I don't want to waste the food, honestly. But you could reasonably do 4 chicken breasts in a pan this big. All right, so our chicken skin is starting to get nice and crispy. We're gonna take a look at it. That's kind of what we're looking for, golden brown throughout. You can actually take it a little bit further. What we're gonna do right now is we're gonna turn our heat off now that we have nice crispy skin. And we're gonna do what's called a kiss. We're just gonna flip it for a second, and we wanna kiss the other side of the meat. We don't want it to cook too long because there's no fat in that meat. So the protein strands are gonna stretch out, they're gonna get really hard, and then it's gonna make a chicken that's kind of chewy. So we're gonna take this out of the pan. Just very, very light on that side. We're gonna put it on a roasting rack. Removing our pan from the heat, because we'll get back to that. Really quick, let's talk about boneless, skinless. If you're using boneless, skinless at home, marinate them, let them sit for a couple hours, and then just kiss them really quick on both sides. The reason being is, like I said, there's no protective skin on there. The longer you sear that non-protected meat, the chewier, the drier it gets, and it just leaves you with a really bad texture. I'm doing these on a roasting rack. The reason being is, you can do them if you don't have a roasting rack at home. That's fine. That's fine. But I like to do them on a roasting rack because what we're going to do is we're going to put them in the oven and we're going to create a conduction current around them, and that's going to cook the chicken evenly from all sides. Now the other thing is, if we put them straight onto a pan, if you put them straight onto a pan, make sure there's a little bit of oil or parchment on there. Very important, because you don't want them to stick. But when you have them on that pan, it's like having them in a hot pan. And what that's going to do is you're actually going to cook that meat and sear that meat a little bit in the pan. I'm going to take these and I'm going to put them in a 350-degree oven. For how long? It's hard to say. Really, the most important thing and the most important tool you can have in your arsenal at home, and this is what I tell my cooks, and I'm constantly buying these, is a thermometer. For food safety and for food quality, this is going to get you the best results in the world. I didn't really used to believe in this, and when I was a kid, I was like, oh, I'll just do it by touch, do it by instinct. And then I started to realize that if you can nail down the perfect temperature of a chicken breast or prime rib, it's going to be exceptionally better than if you're just playing it. Plus, it also gives you a chance to judge, hey, that needs 5 more minutes. Or hey, that needs 10 more minutes. So we're going to take these chicken breasts, we're going to put them in a 350-degree oven. Less time if you have a convection oven, more time if you don't have a convection oven. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick them up to about 146 degrees, 146 to 148. I've been taking a lot of online food safety classes lately with the shutdown and everything. And it's funny, the FDA changes their temperatures about every year, every other year. So it used to be 160 degrees for chicken, now it's 155. Really, these are going to be perfectly done at about 146, because what they're going to do is when we pull them out of the oven, there's something called ambient temperature. They're going to continue to cook, and they're going to continue to cook probably about, based on their size, probably about another 5 degrees. So we pull them out at 148, they're going to come up to 153, 155. So I'm going to put them in the oven. I usually set a timer for about 12 minutes. It's probably going to take 16, and the reason I know that is from instinct and because I've cooked thousands of chicken breasts in my life. We're just going to let them go. Hey Siri, set 12-minute timer. Sorry, modern technology, that's the way we do it in the kitchen now, as much as I hate to say it. So this is a thing of beauty. This is flavor, this is love, this is everything you want. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this and I'm going to show you how to make a really, really sauce that's super versatile. First thing you want to do is have a metal pan or something. You want to dump that fat out. Get rid of most of that fat because it doesn't really have a great flavor and stuff. It's been cooking and cooking and cooking. And we're going to get that pan back over heat really quick. And I'm going to add about a cup of just quality chicken stock. Broth out of a can, whatever you have at home. And if you don't have chicken stock, if you don't have chicken broth, use water, because there's enough flavor and all those caramelized particulates in the pan, which technically is called a fond, to bring out cooking terms, that's going to infuse that with a ton of flavor and really just kind of bring everything together. To that, I'm going to add a little bit more chopped rosemary because I had some left over. We're going to add some whole butter. And we're going to reduce it down. What we're going to do here is we're going to concentrate all the flavor in that stock. And then as it boils, that boiling action is going to emulsify the butter into the sauce. Once it's reduced down, once it's emulsified, I'm going to show you what happens if you overcook it and how to fix it, because this is really just, it's a very basic sauce. Technically, if it's done with water, it's called the beurre monté, water and butter, emulsified butter. So we're just going to let this go. We're going to finish that with a little bit of fresh lemon juice right before we put it on the plate. The joy of this sauce is, how many ingredients? 2, 3? You can do 1,000 things with this sauce. You can add white wine to it, you can add mustard to it, you can add olives to it, you can add different herbs to it, different acids, manipulate it to what you like. The big thing is just getting that emulsification, getting that flavor of the chicken, and we can make it, we can let it sit until we're ready for it, and then just heat it back up. If it breaks, if we over-reduce it, we can bring it back real easy. It's just a very beautiful, and this is called the Penne jus. So while our jus is reducing, timer went off on the chicken. We're gonna check the chicken, and careful, it's super hot. You wanna take it out of the oven. Once again, this is an industrial convection oven, so it'll probably cook stuff a little bit faster than what you're used to. You're gonna take your probe thermometer, and you wanna stick it in the thickest part of the chicken. Don't stick it too far through. You really want to get that internal read. And believe it or not, that piece isn't done yet. But that piece is. So what you can do in that case, can remove one of the pieces of chicken from the tray. And we're going to put this one back in the oven for a couple of minutes. Set that aside. We're just going to let that sit. With the chicken, you can let it sit for 10, 12 minutes. It's probably best just to let the protein strands soften up and let the juices kind of come together. You don't want to cut hot chicken right away because you're going to lose a lot of the moisture. And then if you let it sit too long, it's okay. Throw it back in the oven, 4 to 5 minutes at about 400 degrees, and just heat it back up. It's not a big deal. So if we look at our jus, you see the butter has emulsified. It's got thick, rich, flavorful. So a lot of times when you're making a jus, especially in the middle of service, you turn around, you forget about it, and what it's going to do, it's going to break. The butter is going to lose its emulsification. And it's not, I mean, it'll still taste good, but it's not going to look that great on the plate. It's not going to coat properly. So I am intentionally going to break this to show you how easy it is just to fix it. So you see, you can start to see the butter come out, and it starts to get greasy. It starts to look like particulates and oil and nothing else. You see the layers of grease right up in there. And that chicken breast is going to be done. I'm going to take this out, put it over here, and I'm just going to let that continue to break out a little bit. Put our chicken breast back together, and we'll keep them warm up here. So this is a completely broken jus. It doesn't look good, probably doesn't taste that great, but all it needs is a little bit of water. Bring it up to a boil, and it's re-emulsified. Because what you do is you reabsorb those proteins back into the water, and that stabilizes the emulsification. Nice, thick, rich. Take a spoon, give it a taste. It's amazing. It's one of the easiest and best sauces because it just truly tastes like what you're cooking and not much else. We're going to take this, we're going to set it aside so we go to finish the plate. Before we plate, later on after we do the mac and cheese, we're probably going to have to bring it back with a little bit more water. It's okay. You can keep bringing it back and bringing it back and bringing it back. We're going to move on to one of my absolute favorite recipes in the world. We're going to make a Truffle Mac N Cheese. And we're going to talk about the variations and the importance of roux and cooking. And so let's just go over our ingredients really quick. First and foremost, a pound of pasta. What type of pasta you use? You can use macaroni, you can use penne. This is a whole wheat fusilli from Italy that's organic. You can use almost any type of pasta you want. Try to stay away from the spaghettis, the capellinis, the spaghettinis, and even the fettuccinis because they don't hold that sauce. The whole point of all the ripples in this pasta is to suck that sauce up and hold it in with every bite. So I've got 1 pound of pasta, a pound of cheese. This is a Swiss Gruyere, and you can use any type of cheese you want, but really The best cheeses are gonna be your harder cheeses, your sharp cheddars, your Gruyères, your Comtes, even Manchego. Manchego works really well. And they need to have a good amount of flavor to them. I mean, if you want, you can use blue cheese, you can use American cheese, you can use Swiss cheese, you can use any type of cheese you want. The ratio is still the same, but you're gonna get more flavor and the texture is gonna be a little bit better with a harder, more sturdier cheese. Believe it or not, my favorite cheese to use for mac and cheese, Safeway has a New York style sharp cheddar that is the absolute best cheese to use for mac and cheese, hands down. If I'm cooking for my family, that's what we're using. Not Comte, not Swiss, anything else. 5 cups of milk. Whole milk, preferably, because really mac and cheese is all about fat. Whole milk has a little bit more fat in it. And we're essentially making, it's called a bechamel. It's kind of a cream sauce, and so we need a nice sturdy milk. Strauss has a really nice organic milk. Use whatever you're comfortable with, or if you have non-fat milk, make mac and cheese with non-fat milk. Use what you have at home. Don't make a big production. Taste it, and the next time maybe do something different. That's what this is really all about. With the milk, I put it in a pot. I've already started to heat it up. We'll get right back to that. Butter, 5 tablespoons. Whole butter, preferably unsalted. If you have salted butter, it's fine. You're just gonna season it a little bit less. Flour, 6 tablespoons. So one of the reasons I like this recipe so much is if you look at it, the numbers, it's 1, 1, 5, 5, 6. That's everything that's in it. Cook your pasta off, big pot, lots of water, and hold it in the colander until you're ready to use it. A lot of people like to put oil on top of their pasta water. Really, it doesn't do anything. They've done scientific tests. It really doesn't do much. You don't need it. Just hold it in the pot. Have your pasta ready to go. If you don't have it ready to go, if you forget, it's fine. You can always cook it off and let the sauce for the mac and cheese sit. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make what's called a bechamel in French cooking terms, and in Italian actually. And we're going to turn that bechamel into a sauce called a mornay. Bechamel is basically roux and milk. Classical French cooking, there's onions, there's cloves, there's a whole bunch of other things. For our application, we don't need that. I love to make bechamels because the applications just are way out there, and I'll show you why. What you want to do is you want to start with your butter. We're just going to melt that in our pan. You want it to be liquid so that it fully incorporates the butter. You don't want it to get too hot because then the butter will start to brown. Turn this oven off so I don't have to yell over it. We're going to melt our butter all the way. Once again, our milk is hot, our milk is ready to go. Roux is very, very important. I'm sure many of you cook at home. I'm sure you've made tons of roux in your life. Especially if you make a lot of gravies. The ratio of roux is very important as well. You always need to have a little bit more flour than you do butter. So I've melted the butter all the way down. I've added the flour to it. And you can do this on the heat, you can do it off the heat. We're just gonna slowly mix that in until it's nice and smooth. The ratio is important because you don't want it too thick. In order to get the best texture, you need to have, in this case, it's 1.2 to 1, that's the proper ratio. And that's to 5 cups of milk, and we'll get back to that in just a sec. So, it's not a lot of roux, so I'm not going to cook it for very long. The reason you want to cook your roux is you're essentially using raw flour, which is a raw grain, milled down. And you need to cook that raw flavor out. Once it's cooked out, you can take it a little bit further. You can take it to where it's a little brown, and that's called a roux noisette. It's got a little bit of a chestnut flavor to it. You can take it even further. Roux noir, which is what they used to make gumbo. We're just gonna get that, and then we're gonna return it to the heat, and we have our hot milk, and we're gonna add a little bit of our hot milk to that. And the reason we're gonna add a little bit is we're gonna see this roux start to thicken up. And by adding just a little bit of milk, it makes it so that we can actually work more of the clumps of roux out. We're gonna add a little bit more hot milk to that and do the same thing. Make sure there's no clumps. And then we'll add the rest of our milk. Now it's really important when you're making a roux or when you're making a bechamel. You really want to bring it up to a boil. It's got to come to a full boil. And then you need to cook it for about 8 to 10 minutes. And the reason for that is you need a consistent end product, and it's okay if you spill on your stove, because I do it all the time. To have a consistent end product, to have a consistent sauce, you want the sauce to be the same when it's in the pan as when it's out of the pan. And if you don't cook it the full length, let's say you only cook it for 4 minutes, and you put it in a pan, it's going to continue to tighten up, which means you're going to end up with a stickier sauce. So we're going to bring this up to a full boil, and then we're going to turn it down and cook it for about 8 minutes. I really want, this is kind of an important step in cooking, because I really want you to pay attention to the ratio, the 6 flour to 5 butter to 1 milk, because the finished texture, if you follow that ratio, whether you're making gravy, whether you're making a larger batch, anytime you're making any sort of bechamel type product, if you follow that ratio, you're always going to end up with the same result. And that's really the joy of it. I always know what my texture is going to be like. If I'm making gravy and I'm not using milk, if I'm using chicken stock, and I want to have the same texture that I'm going to end up here, I use the same ratio. If I want it slightly thicker, I add a little bit more flour. If I want it slightly thinner, I add a little bit less flour. And it's really that simple. So we're going to just kind of let this keep boiling. We can cut right there. Let's let it come up to a boil. All right, beautiful. So we brought our roux up, we brought our bechamel up to a boil. Turned it down very, very low. We started it every couple of minutes. We just cooked it for about 10 minutes. And at this point, we really want to look at the texture before we start adding cheese to it. So I'm gonna set that aside. And really, so this is the texture that you end up with. You know, it's what we call nappe, which means it just coats the back of the spoon. You can use this as a pasta sauce. A little bit of acid to it, some lemon juice, some salt. There's 1,000 things you can do with this. But just remember, if you follow the ratio of 1 cup flour, 1 cup of liquid, chicken stock or milk, to a tablespoon of flour, to just slightly less butter than a tablespoon, you're always going to end up with the same texture. As long as you're cooking it for the same amount of time, you're following the same process. So at this point, we're gonna add our cheese and some salt. Salt just due to taste. It's probably gonna take about a tablespoon, and this is a lot of cheese. And the important part here is you want to turn the heat off of the bechamel before we turn it into a mornay. And we're gonna add some cheese to it. Because what we don't want to do, we need to keep this hot enough to melt the cheese, but not so hot that it breaks the protein strands in the cheese out and it becomes stringy. So we're going to slowly add the cheese so we're not dropping the temperature of the bechamel too fast. And then we're whisking it in until it's almost complete. We're going to add more cheese, usually 3 or 4 cheese additions, and you're good to go. Let me get this cheese in here. Now, softer cheeses are going to melt quicker. They're also going to thin the bechamel out just a little bit. If you notice that it starts to bind up, which will happen if it happens to drop too quick, if you notice it starts to bind up, put a very small amount of heat under it for just a couple of minutes, and it should fix itself. Once it starts to fix itself, turn that heat off. Finish emulsifying our cheese, and then I kind of want to have a lesson on taste, because that's super important. I just realized my hands are not big enough for all my macaroni and cheese. So after we have all our cheese in, it's nice, smooth, good texture. I want everybody to take a spoon, take a small amount of the Mornay as it is now. I want you to taste it. I want you to notice, thanks Dirk, I want you to notice where in your mouth you really, really taste it. And it's generally, it's not really cheese dependent. It's the type of sauce that it is, but generally where it's gonna hit, it's gonna hit the umami regions of your tongue and the rich regions of your tongue. And that's kind of around the outside, towards the front, the tip, and just the top of the tip. It's delicious. It is absolutely fantastic. But it can be better. And that's kind of why we're here. What it's missing is, when you taste it, you don't get a lot of flavor in the back of your throat. And that's kind of what I like to call the spark zone. It's where your tongue really lights up. The things that really activate that are going to be acid and heat, chili flakes, all types of stuff. So we want to, at this point, you could add a little bit of truffle oil, add your pasta, you're good to go. I personally, I like to balance it out a little bit. And I'm just gonna add a splash of Tabasco and the juice of about half a lemon. And then I said we were gonna use truffle oil. If you have truffle oil at home, use it if you want. If you don't, it's fine. It's perfectly delicious without it. So I'm gonna add about a tablespoon of truffle oil. It's really gonna blow up that umami part that's gonna go really well with the rosemary. I'm just gonna whisk that all in. And then we'll taste it again. And keep tasting until it tastes right to you. This isn't something that's innate. This is something that's learned, is how to taste stuff. And I'm learning constantly how to taste stuff every day, you know? If you have a cold, you have to taste stuff differently. But really just, you really want to develop those layers, and really it's all about exciting your tongue. That's what makes good food. So I got a little bit of a bite in the back of my tongue. I don't really taste the lemon juice. I don't really taste the Tabasco, but it's there and it's definitely affecting my tongue. So my advice to you is next time do this in a slightly bigger pot. I thought it was big enough. It probably just is, but we're gonna take all this, we're gonna mix it up. I'm gonna take my pasta, which I cooked ahead of time. Make sure it's still warm. I'm gonna add it in, and then just mix everything up. And this is really ready to go. It's important when you cook off your pasta, you can cook it probably, if you time it right, while your bechamel is cooking. You don't want your pasta to get too cold. And from this point, really, it's ready to go. What we do at home, what we do for my family is we'll put this into a baking dish, and then we take Semi-Freddy's garlic croutons and smash them up in the bag, sprinkle it over the top, and throw it in a 350-degree oven for about 15 minutes, just to kind of get golden brown. Just because I like that textural difference of the breadcrumbs on top of the creamy mac and cheese. So we'll set this aside for a second. I am essentially going to show you one of the most common ways the vegetables are prepared in an industrial kitchen or in a professional kitchen. And how we get flavor into those, how we develop those, and why we do it that way. So the first thing you're going to need is a big pot and a saute pan. We're going to make what is called the beurre monté. Now, if you remember the jus that we made for the chicken, we're going to make the exact same thing, but this time we're going to use a little bit of butter, a little bit of shallot, fresh shallot, a little bit of chopped garlic. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a butter garlic sauce that we're going to put on our vegetables, just to add a little bit more flavor. If you don't have time for this, that's fine. It's just cook your vegetables however you want. Vegetables are delicious. I'm using asparagus because honestly it's what I had in my fridge at home. And you can use green beans, you can use broccoli, you can use carrots, you can use fava beans, peas, whatever you like to do. The application is still the same. So you've got a big pot of boiling water. You have to have enough salt in your water. It should taste a little bit less saltier than what the ocean tastes like, because that's your chance to really get salt into your vegetables. Whatever you do after they come out of there, you're just getting salt on the outside. You really kind of confuse it. I've turned my pan on. We're going to saute the shallots and the garlic and the butter together, and we just want to cook some of the acids out of those allium vegetables, or the shallots and the garlic, just to take some of the strength away and just build a more subtle flavor. We're just going to sweat those down a little bit. The most important step here is don't brown your shallots and your garlic, because anything in that family of vegetables, when they start to get really bitter. So just quickly color it, and then I'm going to add some of that blanching water. And we're gonna emulsify that. So while that's emulsifying, I'm gonna dump my veg, put my veg in my water, and do a quick blanch. Asparagus blanches really fast, especially if it's the skinnier stuff. Green beans take a little bit longer. Really, you're looking for a vegetable that's just al dente. So we've emulsified that butter out, and we're going to season it. And we're just going to take our hot vegetables out of here. Take them where you want them, just under. That's where I like my asparagus. We're just going to take that emulsified butter off. And like I said, green beans, pretty much any veg, broccoli, cauliflower. If you want to prepare it this way, it's a great way to prepare it. And we don't want to really cook them much further in this. We're just going to coat them with that butter and a little bit more salt. And that's going to be it. So that's everything. We're going to plate up just really quick so Dirk and I can have lunch, and start with some of our asparagus. The asparagus or the veg do last thing. Do a couple minutes before you need it, because it will overcook. And I personally am not a huge fan of overcooked vegetables. You see, it's got a little bit of garlic, it's got a little butter, it's got a little shallot on there. Put our asparagus on the plate. Take a little bit of this mac and cheese. It's all creamy and it's all come together. Don't need much. The mac and cheese recipe, really, if you wanted to, you could do half. because it does make a lot and it is very rich. The reason I made the size I did, our chicken's still hot, which is great. Our skin's nice and crispy. Give it a nice slice to it. And if you look at the inside of the chicken, you give it a little squeeze, you can see it's full of moisture. It's fantastic. And then we're going to take our jus, put it back on the heat really quick, and some of that water that was in there already evaporated. So we're just going to add a little bit more water to it. Bring it back to a boil really quick, and then we'll finish the plate. And there you go. Pan roasted chicken breast, truffled, fusilli pasta gratin, some butter poached asparagus, and a little rosemary lemon jus. Enjoy. So next week, we're gonna leave it up to if we want to continue doing this, which Dirk and I would like to do. We were thinking either gnocchi or risotto. Which would be two great classes to teach. How to make it, how to prepare it, how to pair with it. And then, yeah, enjoy it. Shoot me an email. Let me know.
With this dish, our food and beverage director, Justin, recommends a Shiraz or a Chianti because neither wine will overpower the chicken or the rosemary, and it will stand up great to the Truffle Mac and Cheese. So cheers, enjoy, stay safe.